In today's show, we're talking about the PowerApps dropdown control. And we're going to have a little fun with it. So we're going to talk about this core control. We're also going to talk about how to do cascading dropdowns. We're going to talk about how to do complex cascading dropdowns, when there's an and or something like that in there. We're going to show and hide some data with the dropdowns. Just try to go over this core control because there's a lot of questions out there. And I thought we should answer them. But before we do any of that, first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today's show is all about me wearing this silly hat with a bunch of silly stuff. No. Today's show is about walking through the drop-down control. And so the drop-down control is a fun one because it's in almost every app I've ever built. And a lot of times we take a lot of what it can do for granted. I know I do. So what I want to do is kind of start at the beginning with this control and just make sure that you got all your head wrapped around how it works. So we're going to talk about like allow empty selection, what it takes for items, how to set the default, and then how to combine two of them so they cascade. So when you select a choice in one, it filters the other. Then we're going to have two drop downs and have the two of them feed into one as well. And just kind of also then talk about how to get the data out when you have multi-columns coming out of it. So a lot of little things here. Nothing new, nothing unique, but just good core skills to kind of reinforce. So let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. I figured we'd start with kind of what we're going to build towards here, just to give you an idea. And I threw a little bit of a Christmassy holiday feel on it because, I don't know, it's the season. So, and my wife's out shopping, spending money. So I'm here making videos, making money. What do you do? All right, anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, with this screen, we're going to do like a cascading. So I'm like, oh, I want a nice green here. And then we're going to get the secondaries. We're like, oh, I want to try neon green. Whoa, it almost like burns your eyes. How about a nice light sea green? It doesn't look very Christmassy. Forest green, yay! So we're going to cover the drop-down controls, right? Make sure you understand kind of how this works and how it does what it does, right? It's nothing too terribly complicated, but for my newbies, this is core skills you need, right? We're also, after we get that one done, we'll talk a little bit about over here. I set up this nice one. I didn't make this one all pretty, but so like if you choose that I want a dog and you want to ask Dad, where the response is going to be, pretty positive stuff. But if you ask about a snake and you ask Mom, then you're going to get a whole bunch of no's, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to have two drop downs here and then have them feed into this one drop down. So that's kind of what we want to do. And so what I thought we'd do is we'll start with a blank screen here. And probably the first thing I want to do is just go through a simple one, right? So I'm going to go insert, input, and then there's the drop down control. Now, when you insert a drop down control, I made it really big for some reason. I don't know why. The first thing you have to ask yourself is what do you want to show in the drop down? And so the drop down control needs you to give it a table of data, but it doesn't care, right? Well, most things in PowerApps, how you get that table. So the simplest is there is a shortcut function where you can do a square bracket, and then you can just put in some simple choices. So yes, no, quotes like that, and then maybe. And so then we close the bracket. And so then now in our drop down, right, we've got yes, no, maybe. So that's a very simple way to kind of go after this. And maybe to make it easier, we'll go over here. We'll go change our font size, maybe from 13 to like 24. Let's make a bigger font, right? Easier for you guys to read. Okay. So that does your first set of things, right? And so when you do this, you can just put these in here. Because I separated them with double quotes, that made them strings. And so if I wanted to pull that out, I could just throw me a label on the screen, right? We'll set this one also to be that 24, right? Nice and big. We're going with, I got small eyes today. And so what we want to do here is we want to say, all right, so for text, we're going to say, all right, drop down. And so we look over here on the left, we can see that the name of our drop down was dropdown 6. Remember, you can change the names, but we're just going to use dropdown 6. And so that says, hey, I can't show you that. That's a control. It's a pretty normal error. Cool. So then you're going to do dot, and then you're going to do selected. Now you notice there's selected text there. That is said it's been deprecated for the last 2 years in the documentation. I never, ever, ever, ever use selected text, and it annoys me to no end that is there. So just ignore it, right? You want selected. Now when you do selected, you notice here we also get another error, and that is because it is putting out a record instead of what we need, which is a text. And so a record is a row in a table, right? Remember that this created a single column table, right? Look, it says make it a table. Column name is value, yes, no, maybe. So yes is a record, no is a record, maybe is a record, right? Each row in the table. So when you do selected, it's like, hey, I can't show you that because that's a record. So then what you guys need to do is hit a dot here. And so then this is going to show you all the different choices. So right now it's just value because it was that single column table. But in a minute, we're going to have more complex. So it's important that if you can't figure out how to get your data out, you do selected dot and then see what the choices are. I wish I could like teach every newbie that on day one. So there you go. So that gets a yes. And then if we just hit play, if we change this to a no or maybe, yes, right? So that's in the most simple form how you get data in and how you get data out. Now, there's a bunch of different nuances to this. Probably the first one I want to show, this is newer. And if you go scroll to the top of the property bar here, allow empty selection. That is false by default. That's why it always will default. Anytime that it doesn't know what to show, it will always show the first record unless you say allow empty selection, in which case it will actually just show you an empty selection. So then now if we, we can use our little reset. We'll still reset over here because I think this is helpful when you're testing. So throw a little reset and we're just going to say, hey, do the function called reset on dropdown 6. If we go all the way down here to dropdown 6 and do that. So then now if I press this, it'll set it back to its default, but its default isn't anything. So now my dropdown is blank. So allow empty selections. When they rolled that feature out, it gave me the ability to build a lot of additional things I wanted to do. So in our most simple form, this is how it works, right? So it's really about setting your items and then yes, no, maybe. So now you're saying, all right, well, show me more, right? Okay, well, so I told you that any table works for items. And so for a lot of us, what we end up doing is we build collections to have our data. So if we go over here to the other screen and let's grab create primary choices, we're just going to copy this out of here so we have that code, right? So we go back over here. I don't want you to have to watch me type all that. We're going to add a button to the screen. And so then with this button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a collection. So clear collect, create a collection or wipe out anything that was there, start blank, called col primary colors. And I'm going to have 2 columns, right? And so anytime you're working with Power Apps, when you see these curly braces, that means a record. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 rows in here. And each row is going to have 2 columns. Color name is red, choice ID is 1, color name is blue, choice ID is 2, color name is green, choice ID is 3. Okay? And so if we go up here now, or we press the button, so Alt, press the button. So now I'm going to say, hey, items, instead of yes, no, maybe, what I want you to use is col primary colors. And so you notice an error here. We'll come to that in a second. But if we hit col primary colors, we hit the little drop down, you can see that now we have a 2-column table, right? A choice ID column and a color name. And so the way that you control which one, if we hit play, let's see which one shows up right now. So we see red, blue, green. What if we wanted to see 1, 2, 3? That's fair. Go over here. Over on the right, you have this thing called, I don't know what you call this, the value drop down, right? But this is saying, hey, which field do you want to show from the table? And so if I hit the drop down, I can choose choice ID. And so then now 1, 2, 3 shows up. But if I change this back to color name, we get red, blue, green. Okay. So this is how you change which column from a table shows up. Now to get the data out of there, if we go click on our label, right? If we hover here, it's going to tell us value's not known. You're like, why? Why doesn't that work? I don't know. I'm going to hit the backspace, go to the dot. Oh, so for a record, when you select it, there's the 2 different choices you have, color name or choice ID. And so then now you can be like, hey, well, I want you to show me the choice ID. And so remember, we're using this right now on a label to show it, but you're really asking me, how do I save this data, right? So that's the key. If you're going to patch this data to your database, whether it's SharePoint, SQL, Dataverse, it doesn't matter, or you're going to use a form control, or you want to include it in an email, well, it doesn't matter, right? All you need to know is that dropdown6.selected.choiceID, in this case, returns the number 1. And if that's what you want to store, even though they chose red over here, right? If we hit play and we change this to blue or green, right? We're seeing that value. So that's what you're after here, is that the idea is that dropdown6.selected is the record, and then you choose the field you want to show based on what they chose. Okay. So then now another challenge here is right now we want to be able to set the default, right? So today it is defaulting to, let's see, hit the drop down. It is defaulting to the text 1, which is in our data set, so it doesn't know what to do, right? If we do a reset, right, which will set it back to its defaults, it goes to blank. What if we wanted to have it default to blue? Well, it's actually just as simple as typing in default to blue. Okay. Now, what's challenging, or what can be challenging, is that the default here has to match the words here, right? So if we change this to green and hit the reset, it'll go back to blue. Okay. But what if we were saying, hey, I want this to default to ID number 2, right? The ID number 2. So we hit play. That doesn't work, right? Because ID number 2, the default is matching the text that is being shown. So you could change your dropdown and make your users choose 2s, right? And so then now, no matter what they've chosen, you can have the default go to 2, but that's not what you wanted. So you wanted to have the default be 2, but have this actually show blue. So let's change this back to blue. So to do that, then what you would need to do is you would have to translate 2 into blue. And so like one of the ways you might do that, there's a lot of ways you could do this, right? But you could say look up col primary colors where choice ID equals 2, and then show me, so that gets the record, perfect. Oh look, dot color name is blue, right? The key is that the text here has to say blue if blue is what's in the dropdown, and that's what you want to match. So even if you store 2 and you have to back your way into blue, then this is what you want to do. And yes, that rhymed. Haha. Okay. So keep that in mind. That can be a little weird. I think what we might do is do a follow-up video called like drop down with data sources and get deeper into that type of stuff. But for right now, all I want you to know is if you're showing blue in the drop down, you want to default to blue. Some way, somehow, you got to get the word blue into the default property. Okay. All right. So we've had a little fun, right? We've shown a couple of pieces here. So now let's see how would we do that cascading. So we'll just throw our, let's just go ahead to screen 1, right? You guys have kind of, no, we'll do it here. All right. We'll do an input here. So we're going to do a second one. And so if you remember, oh, you know what? I'm just going to copy this one so it's the same size. Control copy, control paste. And so you remember here on this other screen, right? We had the whole you chose green, and then in the secondary I showed different types of greens, okay? So the way that we create that is that's called a cascading dropdown. And so the key is if you have a real simple scenario, so in our case, you know, we have col primary colors, blah, blah, blah. And then my secondary colors was this. So this is a table. Here, let's just click on this to show you the table that is storing the color code, right? So the actual color object, an ID, so like a primary key for my little table, the color name, and then the parent color, right? So if you choose red, remember the output of that was 1, blues are 2s, greens are 3s. So that's what this little collection did, right? This little view makes it real easy, I think, for you to see what you've created. So this code will do that. And remember, if you're a subscriber over at training.poweraapps911.com, you can download this app, get that code if you want some fun color codes, right? So if we go over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, first off, I'm going to say, all right, I want you to show me col secondary colors, right? So that'll do what we think. And we'll say, all right, show me color names. And so if we hit the drop down, there's all of them, okay? But you want to filter this down. You want to cascade these, but this is always my first step. I can see them all. I feel better that I see them all. So then now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take advantage. If we want to do a simple filter or a simple cascade, you can actually use this little depends on over here on the right. And we can say, hey, parent control was that first one. That was named dropdown 6. And so in this one, what I want to do is I want to find the matching field. And so if we spit out here the choice ID, yep, that's 1. I want to match on color ID. Nope, I don't. I want to match on parent color. So if matching on parent color, if we say apply, it wrote us a filter formula. And now if we choose blue, we see periwinkle blue, right? My mom wants a caravan. That's that color. If you know what that movie is, you should leave it in the comments. That's a fun little, it's one of my favorite movies. So anyway, you got periwinkle blue, you got navy blue, neon blue. But if you change this up here to red, now you've got different reds or greens. So we got what we wanted, right? A very simple filtering out the data. Now, oh, I guess I should choose one. So let's choose, let's go choose our periwinkle blue. So we choose our periwinkle blue. So then remember, now if we want to get the data out of that one, well, we're not going to copy this control again because I think that's easier. It's already bigger. Whoop, pull us down here. And we're going to say, hey, now instead of dropdown 6, I want dropdown 6_1, right? Terrible naming, but that's what it's named right now. Dot selected. And then what field do I want? Oh, I want the color name. And so that says periwinkle blue. Oh, well, all right, that's fine. What if I do color code? So that's not going to work, right? Because color code actually puts out the color object because I set my table up to be that, right? So this happens sometimes when you're using different data sources. Your control has different pieces about that. So, but that's actually good to know, right? So I'm going to change this back to color name. Okay. And then we're going to have a little icon over here, right? We'll grab the old smiley face icon. I love my smiley face. Pull it over here. We'll kind of make it big. And so now I'm going to say, hey, your color is not whatever that is. It is going to be dropdown 6_1 dot selected. Oh my goodness, dot selected. And then now we do want that color color code. Oh, so look at that. So then now if we choose periwinkle blue, if we do navy blue, neon blue, oh, we're into the reds now. Pink, right? We have our control. And that's the thing I'm trying to really drive home here, right? You're not going to build this app. I totally get that. But what I want you to take out of this is dropdown 1 selected. That was the whole record. And then as soon as I got into that whole record, right, then I'm like, oh, well, what are these things that I want? I want the color ID, the color, the name. And I was able to pull that out. And then once I pulled it out, I could use it however I wanted. Now, if you're wondering in my collection, how did I store an actual color? PowerApps is real smart. So all I did was I said, hey, color code is, and I gave it red, pink, hot pink, or I gave it a color value function. I just gave it a color. And PowerApps like, cool, Shane wants to store a color in here, not text, not a label, but an actual color that he could use for colors. So that was how we set that up. Okay. So that's a lot of what we see here on this particular screen. Now, remember a couple of things I did do here. So like my reset, that resets these. But I did set this to allow empty selections. So then that way it would default to blank, which is one of the things I wanted to do. So I said, hey, green. Notice the text is not down here. Then we choose dark olive green. Now the text is here. So what I did for the visible property, right, its color is the color code. You probably figured that out. But its visible property, I said, hey, visible is if is blank dropdown selected color and then the not operator. So if it is not blank, so as long as you've chosen a color over in that secondary dropdown, then we're going to get what we want, right? But if you don't have a color chosen, right? So if I deselect dark olive, it goes away. So that's all I'm doing was checking to see whether or not that is blank to determine whether or not I see those colors. Okay, so there you go. So there's the first round of this. So now I realize the next set of questions you're going to say is, well, Shane, I got 2 dropdowns. I don't want these to cascade, but I want these 2 dropdowns to cause a third one to cascade. Fair. So to do that, I went here to screen 2. And so I made a collection, right? And so a whole bunch of code here. But so if we do this, right, we can kind of, oh, let's minimize this for a second. Click in there. There you go. So we can see that it has 3 columns. A person column, so, you know, dad, mom, or kids, the pet column, and then the response column. And so what we're going to do is we're going to filter where the person column equals this, the pet column equals that, and then we're going to show the responses. Now, when I set up these dropdowns, you can see that I went ahead and hard-coded dog, cat, snake, dad, mom, kid. Now, what I could have done is we could have used, right, the video from a couple weeks ago, we could have used distinct and said distinct pet responses on the pet column. And so then now it would automatically maintain itself. And so if I went back up here to my collection and just added another row real quick, let's just add 1 row. We'll copy this row and we'll add a new type of fish, a new type of pet. We'll add a fish in here. right? I'm messing my data all up. That's okay, we'll press the button. But the beauty of the distinct is that now fish automatically showed up here as well, right? But so what I did was I said, all right, so that's, I'm gonna choose cat there. If we go to this one, I could do that same logic. We're just gonna leave it hard-coded. And so then now for this, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, I want to filter, and I broke my data, fair enough. But so filter cold pet responses. Remember, that's all of those different choices that we just made. Filter this data set where the pet is equal to dropdown 3, right? And that's this one. You can see it by turning green. Dropdown 3.selected. Value's not right. This happens to you guys all the time. Like, why not? I don't know. Delete it. Oh, because I use distinct. Distinct uses a column named result instead of a column named value. So we'll change that to result. Whoa! And then the person is dropdown 4 selected.value. And so then now if we choose a snake and the kids, we get their standard responses. If we choose dad, go ask your mother, right? Because I don't want to be the bad guy, but dad does not like snakes. Dad does not want a snake in his house. So there will not be a snake in this house. But if you want a dog, dad is very pro dogs. So, right, Chewy is, where Chewy was. Chewy was sitting there. He's gone now. I'll put a picture on the screen of Chewy. Hey, Chewy. All right. So hopefully that gets you guys thinking about dropdowns, right? So remember, allow empty selection, super helpful. Items is really where it's at. And if you have data sources, right? So remember, it takes a table for the items. That can be any table. So that could be that hard-coded square bracket table we made. We could do a collection like we showed. I could pull in a SharePoint list or a Dataverse list or a SQL list, right? Any table that I might want. I could even pull in the choices from a SharePoint column by using the choices function, but that's further down the rabbit hole than we want to go today. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments. I always answer those. Remember, we also have some different training classes. If you're watching this video and like a lot of this was new to you, I've got a free class out at training.poweraapps911.com. It's like an intro to Power Apps and Power Automate. So go check out that one. And I've got more advanced classes. They do cost money, but I got more advanced classes out there as well. But if you're really watching this and this was mostly new to you, then starting with that free class would really help you move along your Power Apps and Power Automate career. All right, and with that, I've got some Christmas presents to wrap. So I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at PowerApps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.